Lecture 6 of the Fairyland of Science. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ashwin Jain. The Fairyland of Science. Lecture 6. The Voices of Nature and How We Hear Them. Week 16. We have reached today the middle point of our course, and here we will make a new start. All the wonderful histories which we have been studying in the last 5 lectures have had little or nothing to do with living creatures. The sunbeams would strike on our earth, the air would move restlessly to and fro, the water drops would rise and fall, the valleys and ravines would still be cut out by rivers, if there were no such thing as life upon the earth. But without living things, there could be none of the beauty which these changes bring about. Without plants, the sunbeams, the air and the water would be quite unable to clothe the bare rocks, and without animals and man, they could not produce light or sound or feeling of any kind. In the next 5 lectures, however, we are going to learn something of the use living creatures make of the earth. And today, we will begin by studying one of the ways in which we are affected by the changes of nature, and hear her voice. We are also accustomed to trust to our side to guide us in most of our actions, and to think of things as we see them, that we often forget how very much we owe to sound. And yet nature speaks to us much by her gentle, her touching, or her awful sounds, that the life of a deaf person is even more hard to bear than that of a blind one. Have you ever amused yourself with trying how many different sounds you can distinguish if you listen at an open window in a busy street? You will probably be able to recognize easily jolting of heavy wagon or dray, the rumble of the omnibus, the smooth roll of the private carriage, and the rattle of the light butcher's cart. And even while you are listening for these, the crack of the carter's whip, the cry of the costermonger at his stall, and the voices of the passers-by will strike upon your ear. Then, if you give still more close attention, you will hear the doors open and shut along the street, the footsteps of the passengers, the scraping of the shovel of the mud carts. Nay, if you happen to stand near, you may even hear the jingling of the shoeblack's pence as he plays pitch and toss upon the pavement. If you think for a moment, does it not seem wonderful that you should hear all these sounds so that you can recognize each one distinctly, while all the rest are going on around you? But suppose you go into the quiet country. Surely there will be silence there. Try some day and prove it for yourself. Lie down on the grass in a sheltered nook and listen attentively. If there be ever so little wind stirring, you will hear it rustling gently through the trees. Or even if there is not this, it will be strange if you do not hear some wandering gnat buzzing, or some busy bee humming as it moves from flower to flower. Then a grasshopper will set up a chirp within a few yards of you, or, if all living creatures are silent, a brook not far off may be flowing along with a rippling musical sound. These and 100 other noises you will hear in a most quiet country spot. The lowing of the cattle, the song of the birds, the squeak of the field mouse, the croak of the frog, mingling with the sounds of the woodman's axe in the distance, or the dash of some river torrent. And beside these quiet sounds, there are still other occasional voices of nature which speak to us from time to time. The howling of the tempestuous wind, the roar of the sea waves in the storm, the crash of thunder, and the mighty noise of the falling avalanche. Such sounds as these tell us how great and terrible our nature can be. Now, has it ever occurred to you to think what sounds is? How is it we hear all these things? Strange as it may seem, if there were no creature that could hear upon the earth, there would be no such thing as sound, though all these movements in nature were going on just as they are now. Try and grasp this thoroughly, for it is difficult at first to make people believe it. Suppose you were stone deaf, there would be no such thing as sound to you. A heavy hammer falling on an anvil would indeed shake the air violently, but since this air, when it reached your ear, would found a useless instrument, it could not play upon it, and it is this play on the drum of your ear and the nerves within it speaking to your brain which make the sound. Therefore, if all creatures on or around the earth were without ears or nerves of hearing, there would be no instrument on which to play, and consequently there would be no such thing as sound. This proves that two things are needed in order we may hear. First, the outside movement which plays on our hearing instrument, and secondly, the hearing instrument itself. First then, let us try to understand what happens outside our ears. Take a poker and tie a piece of string to it, and holding the ends of the string to your ears, strike the poker against the fender. You will hear a very loud sound, for the blow will set all the particles of the poker quivering, and this movement will pass right along the string to the drum of your ear and play upon it. Now take the string away from your ears and hold it with your teeth. Stop your ears right and strike the poker once more against the fender. You will hear the sound quite as loudly and as clearly as you did before, but this time the drum of your ear has not been agitated. How then has the sound been produced? In this case, the quivering movement has passed through your teeth into the bones of your ear, and from them into the nerves, and so produced the sound in your brain. And now, as a final experiment, fasten the string to the mantelpiece and hit it against the fender. How much feebler the sound is this time, and how much sooner it stops. Yet still it reaches you, for the movement has come this time across the air to the drums of your ear. Here we are back again in the land of invisible workers. We have all been listening and hearing ever since we were babies. But have we ever made any picture to ourselves of how sound comes to us right across from a room or field? When we stand at one end and the person who calls is at the other. Since we have studied the aerial ocean, we know that the air filling the space between us, though invisible, is something very real, and now all we have to do is to understand exactly how the movement crosses this air. This we shall do most readily by means of an experiment made by Dr. Tyndall in his lectures on sound. I have here a number of boxwood balls resting in a wooden tray, which has a bell hung at the end of it. I am going to take the end ball and roll it sharply against the rest, and then I want you to notice carefully what happens. See, the ball at the other end has flown off and hit the ball, so that you hear it ring. Yet the other balls remain where they were before. Why is this? It is because each of the balls, as it were knocked forwards, had one in